9:30, that means time to talk a little high school sports here. It's KCIM Sports Rewind. Assistant Sports Director Casey Miners, present, right?
Yes, I am. I'm
fully awake today.
I was here before Jeff was.
Whoa.
It's only because you had an interview at 8:15, right?
Yeah, but
we came in, left, got some breakfast, came back.
normally you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm dragging a little bit.
Yeah.
But, wide awake today, so we're expecting big things out of you.
We've got to schedule more interviews at 8:15 in the morning for us. That's what we got to do.
Usually I wake up the last 5 minutes of Rewind, so it's okay.
So Casey's here, Jeff Blankman, Sports Director here. I'm John Ryan. Let's talk a little about college basketball before we get to wrestling.
Okay.
I ran across this morning. This was crazy, and I don't really have a trivia question about this, but it's just amazing that October 14th is when they released the AP preseason men's basketball poll. 4 months later, guess how many top 10 teams are not even ranked from the preseason poll?
Kansas was preseason 1, and they're not ranked no more.
I'm going to say 5.
5 is exactly correct, because that is Kansas. You're right. Casey was one of those that are just second straight year. The Jayhawks are just preseason number 1 team. Nowhere to be found in the rankings right now. Who are the other 4? Do you know?
Oh. North Carolina.
North Carolina. In fact, they were now listed as the first 4 out of the NCAA tournament, and they were number 9 preseason.
We're just doing top 10, right?
Top 10.
Okay.
That's
top 10
Texas was one of them.
Right.
And they started the year. Well, but the Texas started the year ranked, and they're not ranked no more.
Yeah, they weren't in the top 10.
Yeah.
But, so it's North Carolina. It's Kansas. There was another one that was part of the Maui Invitational that they got beat by Colorado early. Gonzaga is another one, They were number 6 preseason going in.
I'm trying to think of like Big Ten teams that were top 10.
Yeah. No Big Ten teams.
That's what I thought. So
Big East, Big
12,
12.
Iowa State. They're still ranked. They're still ranked.
there.
It's UConn.
UConn. Yep, there's another one. So we got one more out of the Big 12.
Out of the Big 12.
I think it was it? Oh, but Arizona's ranked now, aren't they?
Yeah, Arizona's
ranked.
Down in Texas.
Is it
the Baylor Bears?
Yeah. Baylor was top 10.
So Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga, Baylor, North Carolina. I mean, you talk blue bloods here.
Right.
Yeah.
None of them are ranked this week. It's crazy. And there are also teams that were not ranked at all that are now in the top 10.
Okay.
That list includes St. John's.
Right.
Rick Pitino apparently turned down there.
He knows how to coach.
Michigan State.
Yeah, Tom Izzo knows how to coach.
And Texas Tech.
And Texas Tech.
Texas Tech is the final one that is now in the top. They're number 10 this week. St. John's is 7. Michigan State is 8. Texas Tech is number 10 right now. So, I mean, crazy. I think two of the 3 of those coaches, legendary coaches. Yes. So they know how to get a team ready for a season.
Tom Izzo used to know how to get a team. I think every single one of his senior classes up until maybe the last couple of years had made at least one Final Four. Mm-hmm. That's how good of a coach Tom Izzo's been.
I'm not a believer in Michigan State yet, just because I don't know. I don't see that. I don't know.
They weren't supposed to be this good, but they might be the best team in the Big Ten right now. So
the Big 12 has been not the powerhouse conference they have. It's the SEC that is the true power right now of college basketball.
Speaking of SEC basketball, and kind of to take us into wrestling, I got a trivia question for you two to see if you can come up with the answer. I thank Bill Kane and Jeff Honnold for this. It was Bill Kane's trivia. So the state wrestling
from the mind of Jeff Honnold.
Which
Here we
is
go.
Scary. So the state wrestling tournament in Iowa celebrated 100 years this year. Who was the very first coach to win the state wrestling tournament in Iowa?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
He's a legendary basketball coach.
Really?
Johnny Orr?
No. It's 100 years. Got to remember, it was 100 years ago.
I wouldn't know.
No clue.
Adolph Rupp. Adolph Rupp was the coach of the very first team to win the first ever state wrestling tournament in the state of Iowa. And
a wrestling coach.
Yes, and now there's an arena named after him in Kentucky.
Legendary Kentucky coach. Didn't he coach here at Iowa State for a little bit or something?
He might have been at Iowa State. I'd
sure.
have to look up his coaching tree, but hard to believe but a guy that coached wrestling in high school then goes on to be a legendary college basketball coach. But that
was back in the day, man. When you were a coach, you coached everything. My dad coached everything from 6-man football in Nebraska to boys and girls basketball and all that stuff all over the place. So every season was just rolled into a new sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was it.
How did your dad coach in Nebraska and you not become a Husker fan?
Long before I was even thought of was that one. But yeah, 6-man football,
really?
Everybody was eligible.
Yeah, they play 6-man football still out in western Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that, like, wow, the top 10, 5 that were preseason top 10 are no longer even ranked. And that's Kansas, the most shocking of them all.
And to me, that's the reason why preseason rankings in every sport don't mean anything. They're basing it off of what you did a year ago. They're basing it off of what they think you're going to do. It has nothing to do with what happened.
But they need hype in the beginning of the year to promote all the games and things like that. Otherwise, if you didn't have a number one team going into the season, what do you promote if you're ESPN and sinking all this money into it?
I'd still watch just because, if it's Alabama against, Tennessee or Alabama against Oklahoma, it's still Alabama against Oklahoma. Alabama against Texas, still Alabama against Texas. So,
do you think if Bill Self wasn't the coach at Kansas, they'd be demanding somebody to get fired?
Yeah.
I mean, this is back-to-back years. You're preseason number one, and you're not even close to the top of the Big 12 standings.
Yeah. And how much NIL are you paying out?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's because it's Bill Self. And you got to wonder what's going on.
Yeah. Why they're just not even part of any conversation at all anymore.
Right.
I mean, it's not like Bill Self's a bad coach, and they're having a bad year. They're just, I mean, they went for preseason number one. They're not ranked. I mean, they're still going to make the tournament and everything, but
if that happens 2 years in a row to pretty much any other coach, there's a hot seat that they're sitting on, and I haven't heard that Bill Self's on any kind of a hot seat.
I wouldn't imagine he's not.
No. Yeah.
Well, they expected Hunter Dickinson to be a dominant force in college basketball.
I don't think he was.
He's a good player
either.
No. He's not dominating anyone right now.
I mean, he wasn't a dominant player maybe outside his freshman year at Michigan.
Right. Yep.
Their best player at Kansas right now, Zach Mayo, was a SDSU transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, he just transferred just to play on the major Division I level. But, it's not doing them any good.
Sometimes you pay somebody a lot of money. They don't put a lot of effort in after that, and then that might be part of the problem down at Kansas right now.
Yeah, who knows about that.
Yeah.
But they've got some stuff to figure out, that's for sure, if they want to return back to that level.
Yeah.
So
they'll get there. I mean, they're Kansas. Even if Bill Self, retires or leaves or something at some point, they'll go and get an elite coach and they'll return.
Oh, yeah.
They're Kansas.
It's Kansas.
They're never going to disappear forever.
Yeah, they got deep pockets.
Yep.
So it's a marathon to the end of the NCAA tournament. So there's still a long way to go. Sort of like the marathon down in Des Moines for the boys' state wrestling tournament, 4 days instead of 3. And I was just checking with you before we went on air, and I said, how long would that seem? And you were like, that seemed long.
It was long, yeah, and it was enjoyable, but it was long. I mean, even like state track, by the time you get to Saturday, it just the days start to wear on you because and stuff. But it's kind of the same thing. I think even the kids and coaches were probably ready to wrap things up. Now, I guarantee you, everybody that made Saturday night, and Owen Clucky and Carson Webker, who got to be up on the podium Saturday night, it wasn't long for them. But, I think for a lot of other people, until you get used to it, this is just year 2 of having 4 days of the state wrestling tournament. But, yeah, I think for those kids, what I do like about it is you really don't have to wrestle more if you keep advancing more than twice in a day. And a lot of times early on, if you win that, like on the first day, you win your first match, you're done for the day. So you don't you don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of nice that you're not making the kids wrestle 3 or 4 times in a day. So.
But that didn't happen for a vast majority of our wrestlers.
Yeah, it was a little bit tough for our area guys this year. They all competed really hard. But, we took 15 kids down, and one made it through on the front side into Thursday. The other 14 were on the back side. We had 3 make it from Thursday into Friday, and then 2 from Friday into Saturday. And both Owen Clucky of Carroll and Carson Webker of South Central Calhoun both ended up on the podium and both ended up in 5th place. So congrats to both of those guys. You do have to look at the seedings a little bit. I don't want to make it sound like our guys didn't wrestle well, but when we had Carson Webker as an 8 seed, he was our highest seed. Quentin Polking was an 11, And for the most part, everybody else was seated below that, which meant you were always facing somebody seated above you pretty much in every round that you wrestled. Even when you got onto the backside, a lot of times you were fighting. I mean, look at Owen Clucky's route. I think it was Friday he wrestled number 3 and number 4, and then he opened up Saturday with number 2. And he beat 2 of those 3 guys. He beat 3 and 4 and ended up losing in a really tight one and had a chance to beat number 2. So it's difficult when you're when you get the seeds that we got to because you're always wrestling against somebody that's technically seated above you and is supposed to go deeper than you. So
yeah, again with the expanded field. It added that extra day to the tournament. Yep. Were you talking to coaches about that at all when you were down there?
I talked to most of them ahead of time. Once we get down there, the conversation kind of more becomes, okay, this is who you got coming up next round. They're not from our part of the state. Tell me what you know. And they're like, well, this is what I saw on film and stuff like that. So I always try to prep a little bit. And I know Bill and Jeff do the same things because, before a session starts, we'll walk around and talk to all of our area coaches on the mats. But a lot of times it's about how's our guy feeling? What's the matchups look like in that first round? And then if I'm down on the floor, so after each round, and stuff, I can kind of catch up with coach and say, okay, this is who Carson's got now coming up in the next round. What do you know about them? And then they kind of fill me in so that I can at least attempt to go into my video interview that I do with them after each match, kind of a little bit knowledgeable about what they were facing and stuff. So, and then I can pass some of that information on to Jeff and Bill as well, because they're, 3 flights up and 3 stories up. So
a lot of young kids taking part. Casey, you were talking about that before.
Yeah, we had 2 freshmen from SCC make it, and I know the poking boy from Carroll's only a junior; he'll be back. So I mean, we had a lot of young kids go, and it's kind of, I think, when they get down there as freshmen and sometimes sophomores, even when you qualify for your first time, like the 2 Coon kids who qualified for the first time, it's kind of eye-opening a little bit. And I think some kids saw that in the first round and then came back and wrestled a lot better the second day that they were out there. And I think we had a lot more competitive matches the second day as well, and I think that's good. And all of it's going to be as good experience for everybody going into next year as well.
Yeah, look at the Audubon. They sent 3 and all of them sophomores on down. So you had freshmen and sophomore from Audubon. So, yeah, great learning experience for the area kids, especially the ones that have never been there before. And they'll come back next year much, much stronger and much more prepared because, as Casey said, some of those guys struggled in that first round. And even if they lost in their second round in that consolation matchup, they tended to wrestle much better in that consolation match just because you had the jitters kind of out of you a little bit.
So, again, state wrestling in the books. Now 2 wrestlers making the podium, each capturing 5th place from Carroll and South Central Calhoun. Anything to wrap up wrestling with?
I thought we had a great year in wrestling this year for both the boys and the girls. I think we've got some outstanding youth that's going to continue to move things forward and
keep the numbers strong.
And I kind of laughed a little bit because as I was getting ready to do the Carroll boys basketball playoff game last night, their postseason game, Owen Clucky and Caleb Hoffman come running through the gym there in Carroll with dodgeballs, and I kind of said to him, I says, "Are you guys getting ready for March the 8th? Because they'll be a part of that dodgeball tournament." So, and they just laughed. So I think it'll be, I'm looking forward to March the 8th because I'm looking forward to honoring, a lot of our area wrestlers and the coaches. We've got some coaches that have done some outstanding jobs this year. Yeah.
All right, so boys swimming's in the books, wrestling's in the books,
bowling's now in the books. Yeah. Cody Bauer bowled. I almost said wrestled, but bowled very well yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I was told. He finished 11th out of 32 kids, and I mean for Carroll, I know we talk a lot about Carroll, but Kemper I think had a really successful season this year too.
I think they improved by about 50% with total pins from the beginning of the year to the end.
Just talking to Coach Bill there at Kemper, you look at meet 1 to the district meet. They bowled their best at that district meet, and that's where you want to see it. So they had steady improvement from Kemper all year long. And, both first-year programs, Carroll took 1 kid down to the state bowling tournament. I think Cody bowled well, and talking with Drake after. And, I get the luxury of living with Drake, so I know more. But he said that Cody bowled really well, and he said that there were some seniors ahead of him that finished in the top 8. So Cody looking, only as a junior, looking to finish in the top 8 next year, and I think he's got a good chance.
All right, so half the sports are in the books, or over half the sports are in the books.
75%, we're down to just basketball.
Girls and boys basketball, and we're going to talk about that next on KCIM Sports Rewind.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
It is KCIM Sports Rewind, and we are left with the winter sports season, boys and girls basketball. And let's begin with the girls side of things, where, Jeff, we were just talking a little bit off air about Storm Lake Carroll. They've always had a history with each other. Usually it's in the early parts of the season, kind of tipping off the season, but they always seem to meet sometimes in the playoffs too. But Carroll's had the best of it for the last, 6, 7, 8 years. But Storm Lake starting to build that program.
Yeah, their girls, the Yanga girls, been outstanding for them. And then Avery DeHaan's probably one of the better shooters that you're going to find. I can still remember her freshman year covering games back-to-back against ESAC and South Central to start the year, and I think she scored over 30 in both of those, and the vast majority of that was from the three-point line. So, kudos goes out to what both of those programs really have done, because, 10 years ago or so when they started playing each other in the regular season, they both were struggling, and now you look at where they've come.
That was maybe the win on the schedule that you could see.
Yeah, Carroll High, a ranked program for a good portion of the year, and finishes third in probably the toughest conference for girls basketball in the state, and Storm Lake probably a team that was in and out of the rankings and probably deserved to be ranked all year, but they were awfully impressive. On Saturday night. And, those two had met earlier this year, and Carroll beat them by 4 up at Storm Lake. And I think you could kind of tell that Storm Lake was not happy about having lost that game earlier in the year, and came in maybe with a little bit more intensity and wanting that game a little bit more. But I thought Carroll played pretty well. Just didn't shoot it all that well.
In the first half, they struggled in the first half. I mean, both teams exceeded what they did, I think, the last time they played, in the regular season. But Carroll did not shoot it well in the first half. And talking with Coach Cook, they get some of those shots to go down. It might be a different ball game, because some of them were open shots, just couldn't get them to fall. But Carroll got them to fall in the second half. And Carroll going to lose a great group of seniors.
Yes.
Those girls have helped, I think, set a foundation for what they want the basketball program to look like. And Coach Cook has just done a great job in her 5 years there.
Yeah, a disappointment is the word that kind of comes to mind. If you're Carroll High, you had them at home. You'd played them previously. They weren't an unfamiliar team to you, but you got to come out just kind of disappointed in the way that you played.
I think they were a little bit, but I think that they knew going into it that Storm Lake was going to play better than what they did, because both teams struggled on offense. When they met earlier in the season, and talking with Coach, she said that Storm Lake has been playing really well since they played them, and so was Carroll. But Storm Lake had the upper hand. The Yanga girl got going really early in the ball game, and Carroll struggled to stop her down low. I mean, both Cook sisters got in foul trouble early.
Yep.
So there was a couple factors that kind of limited Carroll, in the first half. And they tried to come back in the second half, cut it to 9 and 8 a couple of times, but, weren't able to get over the hump.
And I always thought that, one of the things that Carroll's defense in that half-court trap, and with Caitlin Aiden out top, they've been able to create turnovers this year that have led to their offense. And I think I had them 3 steals in the first half and maybe 5 for the game. I thought Storm Lake did a really good job of handling their pressure and not turning the ball over. And that allowed them to get Yanga going inside and allowed them to get, DeHaan going. And then the other girls all stepped up and played really well.
So who's coming back for Carroll?
Carroll's going to have some good pieces come back. Both Cook sisters will be back. Jersey Sport, Annalie Ayala, who's given them really good minutes off the bench, this year. So Carroll should have a really good group coming back. It's going to be tough to replace, Sophia Tigran and Carly Macon, Olivia Roeder, Caitlin Aiden, the 4 seniors. But I think Carroll's got a good group to build around.
Yeah, and it would have been interesting if Carly wouldn't have been hurt, and stuff with the knee surgery this year, and would have been able to kind of be full strength, because she was a 12-point, 10-rebound type of a player. And even though they were strong in the post, it would have been interesting if they would have had her as that added depth here in the postseason, especially against the Storm Lake team. But I'll just say this. If I'm Sue Center, who got the winner of that game Saturday night, I look at the way Storm Lake played against Carroll the other night, and I'm sitting here going, ooh, this is a really, really difficult regional final.
Yeah.
And so Carroll High, taking that next step for the program. Do you see, the future still continues to be very bright. mention the returning players,
Yep.
Casey.
I think the future continues to be bright. Katie's done a great job.
Yep.
In her years there, and I think even the kind of rebuild started before Katie got there with Mark Renning and Coach Wallace, the co-head coaches. They had some teams that struggled, but you could see the progress.
Yes.
And you could see it there. And then when Katie took over, she kind of helped, finish that a little bit. I don't know if that's a bad way to put it, but, she helped she helped finish the process of what was started. And I think Carol, depth-wise, should be really good for quite a few years.
From where that program was to where it is now, night and day difference. You just don't climb out of a hole like that overnight or within a couple of years, honestly.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad you brought up Mark and Nate. We talked a little bit about them on Saturday night. They sometimes probably don't get the credit that they deserve for, taking this program when it was probably at its very bottom and having that hard work of getting the young kids excited about playing basketball and building so that you can kind of get it to where the program, and then Katie took it and just kept kind of running with what they did and has done a tremendous job with that.
Carroll boys have been kind of up and down this year, definitely, but had an up day in the playoffs on Saturday.
Last night. Played really well last night, very dominant. You take away the 8-0 run that Sadell went on in the first quarter. Carroll opens up the game with an 11-0 run, turning Sadell over on their first 5 possessions, and then Carroll decides to give it back and turn it over 3 straight possessions, and Sadell scores 8 straight to make it 11-8, and then from there on, Carroll just dominated that game. Stone Siebenoller had 7 threes. Trey Tassel continues to, I call him Vinny the Microwave Johnson from Detroit days, and stuff with the way he contributes off of the bench and everything, and Noah Hinters dominated on the glass along with Carter Essick, and Miles Nuzmak gave him great minutes off of the bench and a lot of different things. So everybody contributed in one way or another to that win last night, and now they get a rematch with Storm Lake up at Storm Lake on Thursday. They beat Storm Lake again, but if I remember correctly, Storm Lake hasn't lost since that game, so they're going to be looking for revenge. So this is going to be, I think that gym's going to be rocking coming up on Thursday night.
I think both fan bases,
both fan bases, I think are going to be huge.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think Storm Lake played their best. When I did that game earlier in the year, and Storm Lake's ranked 5th. I mean, the Kuhn kid is
really good,
crazy good.
Yep.
I mean, not a lot of kids in this part of the state. You might see it in Des Moines and stuff like that. I think can grab the basketball underneath the court and rise up and throw it down with one hand with ease.
Right.
I mean, he's super athletic.
7 or 8 dunks in one game earlier this year. And Iowa State both recruiting him really hard.
Creighton out there, The kid's really good. I would imagine Carroll's going to be up and ready for it, because that Carroll did beat him earlier in the year. It's not a game that I don't think Carroll can't win.
Right, agreed.
But this game is going to be tougher than what it was in the beginning of the year. I think Storm Lake had an off night that night, shooting the basketball wise, and I think Carroll's going to be ready to come. They already always gets them prepared in the postseason, so I expect that game should be really good on Thursday.
And the winner there has a really legit chance to come out and go to state.
Yeah. So Carroll, one of 4 teams left in the boys' side, right? We got Coon Rapids Bear, we got ICAM Manning, we got Kemper. All of them going to be in action tonight.
Yes, I'll have ICAM Manning taking on ACGC down at Audubon tonight. Looking forward to that one. The Wolves on a 3-game winning streak, so is ACGC. This will just be the 4th time that these two programs have met. ACGC won it back in 2023 by 14, but the game was an 8-point game midway through the 4th quarter. So
that's odd that they have not run into each other before.
I know. They're not that terribly far apart. But
we see that a lot around here,
though. We do. But I think it's going to be a good ball game. You got to figure that ACGC, because of their size, they've got a bunch of 6'1" to 6'4" guys that are all 2-something. They're all football kids that play basketball really, really well.
And
they're physical.
Season.
And so they probably are the favorite coming out of that. For Kemper tonight, Casey, you get that one. They're clear favorites.
Yes,
in their
we're anticipating Kemper to roll tonight, but you never know. You can't. You don't. I don't want to sit here and say that Kemper's got a chance to lose, but I think they're clear favorites tonight. But at the same time, it's the postseason. I remember back when I was in high school and at Carroll, and Carroll was like 9-14, and they went and knocked off number 1
Harlan. At Harlan.
Yeah. And, so you never count anything out, but I think Kemper going to be the clear favorite tonight against West Marshall.
As you mentioned, the clear favorite. So that, not that we're looking forward to the sub-state, but that's our job, right?
Right.
We do that. So who's standing in Kemper's way before the state tournament?
Denver likely. But talking with Coach Minahan, Union, who upset Alburnett, could be a tough one too.
Right.
Kemper at this point of the tournament run should be tested.
Right.
You want to be tested to get you ready for that state tournament, and they're going to be tested in Denver or Union, whoever comes out on the other half of that bracket.
Yeah, and that game's going to be played down at the Knapp Center down at Drake.
Oh.
So that'll be kind of fun. So
kind of a great atmosphere for that game. But it can be an intimidating place too. The background for shooting, and it's just a different type of setup.
It is, but I think a lot of these kids play travel ball, so they probably play in facilities like that, and stuff in that. And it's also going to benefit them. Whoever comes out and wins going to be a little bit more used to that background when they head to Wells Fargo Arena the following week. But Kemper heavy favorites tonight. I think the really interesting one is the Coon Rapids Bayard Mount Air game. That's two really good teams squaring off. Coon's been great all year long, and Corey Meyer does such a fantastic job down there. Now, some people probably know this, especially people in Coon. There's a connection there. I can't think of his first name, but Rich Ruggles' son is the head coach down at Mount Aaron. Rich, of course, is from Coon Rapids, so you've got that. I think he's a Coon grad. You've got that connection there or whatever. So that one should be really fun. I think Nick Brinks is going to have I think a thriller tonight.
So that one tips off once again at 7 o'clock tonight, 6:45, the pregame on that one. But what is it about? Coon, give me the scouting report on them. That's what.
Defense?
Where do they need to take advantage of tonight?
They play a lot of good defense, and I think it helps, especially in 1A, when you have the best player in the court.
Yep.
I don't know how many times, maybe a handful of times this year, that Cal wasn't the best player on the court.
Right.
And maybe you're counting one or twice.
Right.
I think that what really helps Coon is that you've got good defense, and they play good team basketball too.
They do.
I think teams key on Cal, but Bryce Lewis can knock down shots. Caden Oswald's
he's really come on strong.
Same with Caden. Caden's been really good the last couple months or so, getting to the basket, distributing the basketball, playing good defense. I would argue that him and Parker Hayes, defensively, are two of our best defensive players for boys basketball.
They can lock you down.
They really get in your face and force you to create your shot and play good basketball.
Yeah. So, good offensively, but they thrive defensively. Ty Hayden has become a 14 rebound type of a kid, and he can score. That takes a little pressure off of Cal in the rebounding area, but Cal can go out and rebound when he needs to. But this is probably the best Coon team since probably the team that made it to state back in about 2010 or so.
So schedule for tonight right here on KCIM. We've got Kemper and West Marshall from Greene County. Casey, you're going to be with the Knights tonight. Jeff, you're going to be out with IKM Manning taking on ACGC. That game from Audubon tonight. And Nick Brinks will be with the Coon Rapids Bayard Crusaders taking on Mount Air from West Central Valley. Tomorrow night, we return back to girls basketball. We've got Coon Rapids Bayard taking on Newell Fonda. That one at Fort Dodge, not taking place in Newell Fonda. And Exira Elkhorn Kimballton taking on Trainer at Underwood. And Jeff, you're going to be making that road trip. Let's talk about those games tomorrow night.
Well, I got to start with this. I'm going to give Casey a hard time. There's a restaurant up in Fort Dodge that he loves. So the moment I heard that Coon Newell Fonda game was scheduled again for Fort Dodge, I'm like, I'm sending Casey because he's going to be mad if I don't let him get to go to that game so he can eat.
I'm going to go stop and get some food before the game. Make sure I bring some home for lunch the next day.
Hey, whatever keeps people motivated, man. I'm telling you.
Yes, because I'll just jokingly say this. When I was talking the other day after I scheduled it, I'm like, are you good? He goes, yeah, I was hoping you'd send me there.
So how about the actual game on the court?
I'll let you talk that one.
Newell's good.
Yes.
And not saying that Coon can't win, but it's going to be a tough test. It is. It's going to be really tough tested. I think you look at Coon statistically, I think I was talking to Coach McAllister, stat-wise, points per game-wise, feel what they give up per game. They're the number one defensive team in Class 1A.
Right.
So, I think they're going to give Newell some fits defensively. Coon's done a nice job doing pressure, with their pressure defense so far this year. And I think the difference is last year they didn't have Anna Hart in this game. This year they do. What kind of aspect does she bring to the game scoring-wise and with her speed and just the ability that she has playing on-ball defense? How does that impact the game as well?
I think her ball handling is going to be huge because, Kuhn's great in the half court in the defense and they can pressure you as well. But if they're turning the ball over, if they're missing shots and Nuafana is getting out and running, that kind of lessens the impact that your half court or your full court defense can have or whatever. So they're going to have to shoot it well and handle Nuafana's pressure, and I think those will be keys for them. My game down at Underwood should be a tremendous game. Exira Kimballton's really good. I'm going to be taking on a very good trainer ball club. I like Exira Kimballton's chances, but they're going to have to shoot it well. Trainer's going to be very well tested out of the WIC this year, and they're going to have size, and that's something that Exira Kimballton has played without really all season long. So I think Harley Fawn's going to have to play well for him inside. I think Jalen Peterson's going to have to play well for him inside. I think Riley Miller and stuff, Zoe Rasmussen, and of course Taryn Peterson are going to have to knock down shots and stuff. If they can do that, I think they've got a legitimate chance to make it down to the state tournament.
Yeah, so once again, we've got Coon Rapids Baird. That'll be on Kick 106.7 with Casey Miners on Wednesday night. And Jeff, you'll be on KKRL with that Exira Elkhorn Kimballton trainer matchup. Thursday night on Kick, Jeff, you've got Carroll and Storm Lake, as we mentioned, that ball game. And then hopefully we have a couple of sub-state games coming up on Saturday night featuring either Coon Rapids Baird, IKM Manning, or most likely Kemper, of course. They should be there, expected to be there. But that is the schedule. Again, go to sports.1380kcim.com for more details. And that is KCIM Sports Rewind.